My name is Jack, and I thought I had the perfect life. I had a loving wife, Emily, who was my high school sweetheart, and a job that I loved. We had a beautiful house in the suburbs, and, despite the ups and downs, our marriage seemed rock solid. We often hosted family dinners and gatherings, and everyone saw us as the ideal couple. Little did I know, everything was about to change in the most unexpected and brutal way. It all started one seemingly ordinary evening. Emily had been acting a bit off for a few weeks, but I attributed it to stress from her job as a marketing manager. I tried to be supportive, cooking dinners and giving her space when she needed it. She would often visit her brother Mike, who had recently gone through a tough breakup. I encouraged these visits, believing that spending time with family would help her relax. One night, after Emily returned from one of her visits, I noticed she was particularly distant. She barely acknowledged me and went straight to the shower. Her phone, which she usually kept close, was left on the kitchen counter. Curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to take a peek. There were several missed calls from Mike and a few text messages. One message stood out. "Can't wait for next time. Last night was incredible." My heart sank. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, perhaps just a misunderstanding, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. I confronted Emily that night. She denied everything, saying it was just a joke between siblings. She looked me in the eyes, and for a moment I wanted to believe her. But the seed of doubt had been planted. The following weeks were a nightmare. I became paranoid, watching her every move. I started noticing small details that I had overlooked before VDJ, the way she smiled at Mike, their inside jokes, the lingering touches. One day, while Emily was at work, I decided to pay Mike a visit. I needed to know the truth. When I arrived at Mike's apartment, I was greeted by an unexpected sight. His place was a mess, bottles of alcohol scattered everywhere, and he looked disheveled. "Jack, what are you doing here?" he asked, clearly surprised. "I need to talk to you about Emily," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Mike avoided my gaze, and that was all the confirmation I needed. "I know something's going on, Mike. Just tell me the truth." He finally met my eyes, guilt written all over his face. "I'm sorry, Jack, it just happened. We didn't mean for it to go this far." Rage and betrayal washed over me. I wanted to punch him to make him feel the pain I was feeling, but I restrained myself. "How long?" I managed to ask. 6 months, he admitted, looking down at his feet. I left without another word, my mind racing. I couldn't believe it. My wife, the woman I loved, had been cheating on me with my own brother. The betrayal was too much to bear. I drove around aimlessly for hours trying to figure out what to do next. When I finally returned home, Emily was waiting for me. She knew. "Jack, please let me explain," she pleaded. "There's nothing to explain," I said coldly. "Pack your things and get out." She burst into tears, but I felt nothing but emptiness. "I never meant to hurt you. I love you," she sobbed. "Love? Is that what you call it? Get out of my house," I repeated, turning my back on her. She left that night, and I was left alone with my thoughts. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could they do this to me? The betrayal cut deep, and I knew I couldn't just let it go. I needed to make them pay for what they had done. The next day, I started planning my revenge. It wasn't enough to just kick her out. I wanted to destroy both of them. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but the thought of them getting away with it was unbearable. They had torn my life apart, and I was going to return the favor. With Emily gone, I immersed myself in work, but my mind kept circling back to the betrayal. I replayed every interaction, every moment, trying to find signs I had missed. The anger fueled me, driving me to meticulously plan my revenge. I knew it had to be thorough and devastating, leaving no room for them to recover. My first step was gathering information. I needed to know everything about their affair VDJ, when, where, and how they managed to deceive me. I hired a private investigator, a no-nonsense guy named Carl, who had a reputation for digging up dirt. He was discreet and efficient, qualities I valued given the sensitivity of the situation. Carl got to work immediately. He followed Emily and Mike, documenting their every move. Meanwhile, I started laying the groundwork for my plan. I wanted to destroy their reputations, their careers, and their social lives. They would be pariahs by the time I was done. A week later, Carl came back with a thick folder of evidence. Photos, text messages, emails, VDJ, it was all there. Clear and irrefutable proof of their affair. As I sifted through the contents, a cold satisfaction settled over me. Now I had the ammunition I needed. First, I targeted Mike. He worked as an architect at a prestigious firm, and I knew his career was important to him. I compiled the most damning pieces of evidence and sent them anonymously to his boss. I included a letter detailing Mike's unethical behavior, highlighting how he used company resources to facilitate his affair. Within days, Mike was fired, his professional reputation in tatters. Next, I turned my attention to Emily. She prided herself on her career, and I knew hitting her there would hurt the most. I sent a similar package to her employer, including explicit photos and messages exchanged during work hours. Her company had a strict policy against such behavior, and it wasn't long before she too was out of a job. But I wasn't done yet. I reached out to our social circle, friends and family. I told them everything, sparing no details. Reactions were mixed vd joy. Some were shocked and supportive, others were disbelieving. But the truth was out, and the gossip spread like wildfire. Emily and Mike found themselves ostracized, their former friends avoiding them like the plague. During this time, Emily tried to contact me repeatedly. She left voicemails, sent messages, even showed up at my office once. I ignored her, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response. Each attempt was a reminder of her betrayal, fueling my resolve to see this through to the end. One evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Emily. "Jack, please, just listen to me," she pleaded. Her voice was hoarse, filled with desperation. "What do you want?" I asked, my tone icy. "Can we meet just for a few minutes? I need to explain," she said. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. "Fine, tomorrow, 7 p.m., at the park near our house." The next day, I arrived early, finding a bench that offered a clear view of the park entrance. Emily arrived right on time, looking tired and worn out. She spotted me and walked over hesitantly. "Jack," she started, sitting down next to me, "I'm sorry, I know I hurt you, and I can never take that back. But you have to understand, it wasn't just about the affair." "Then what was it about, Emily? Enlighten me," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. She took a deep breath. "Our marriage, it wasn't working. We stopped communicating, stopped connecting. I felt so alone, and Mike, he was there. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake, but it came from a place of pain." I listened, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "So instead of talking to me, you decided to sleep with my brother. That's your solution?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I know it was wrong. I know I betrayed you, but please, Jack, punishing us like this, it's destroying me. I can't find a job. I can't show my face anywhere. I've lost everything." "Good," I said coldly. "You deserve it, both of you." She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled away. "I loved you, Jack. I still do. Can't we find a way to move past this?" I stood up, looking down at her. "No, Emily, there's no coming back from this. You made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences." As I walked away, I felt a strange sense of closure. The pain was still there, but it was dulled by the satisfaction of seeing her suffer. My revenge was nearly complete, but I knew there was one final step left. Mike had to face the full extent of my wrath. The confrontation with Emily had given me a sense of closure, but it wasn't enough. My brother Mike had betrayed me in the worst possible way, and I needed him to feel the full weight of his actions. I spent the next few days refining my plans, ensuring that every detail was perfect. I wanted this to be thorough, leaving no stone unturned. Mike was living in a small apartment across town. After losing his job, he had to sell his house and downsize significantly. His social life had evaporated, and he was now a shadow of the man he once was. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed him to experience true devastation. I decided to exploit his biggest weakness, his new relationship. Despite the fallout from our family's disapproval and his tarnished reputation, Mike had managed to find a new girlfriend, Laura. She was a kind, naive woman who seemed genuinely in love with him. It was cruel, but I knew that taking her away would crush him. I started by befriending Laura under a fake identity. I created a persona online, complete with social media profiles and a backstory. I positioned myself as a charming, successful man who shared her interests. It wasn't long before we started chatting regularly, first through social media, then over the phone. I made sure to keep it platonic initially, building her trust. Once I felt I had established a strong connection, I began planting seeds of doubt about Mike. I casually mentioned stories about unfaithful partners, expressing my disdain for cheaters. Laura, unaware of my true identity, started confiding in me about her relationship with Mike. She admitted that she had heard rumors about his past, but had chosen to believe in his changed behavior. "It's just so hard to trust after everything I've heard," she told me during one of our conversations. "I understand," I replied sympathetically. "Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it can be impossible to repair. Just be careful, Laura. Sometimes people don't change." The more we talked, the more she began to question her relationship with Mike. I could sense her growing unease, and I knew it was time to escalate my plan. I arranged a meeting, pretending I was in town for business and wanted to finally meet her in person. She agreed, excited to meet her new friend. We met at a cozy CAF-GC downtown. I recognized her instantly from her photos VDJ, a petite woman with a warm smile and kind eyes. I approached her, maintaining my charm and confidence. We chatted for hours, and I could see her trust in me solidifying. It was time to deliver the final blow. "Laura, there's something I need to tell you," I said, feigning reluctance. "I've been doing some digging, and I found out something about Mike that you need to know." Her eyes widened with concern. "What is it?" "I came across some evidence that Mike has been unfaithful to you. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you deserve to know the truth." I pulled out my phone and showed her a series of photos that Carl, my private investigator, had taken of Mike with another woman. They were damning, capturing intimate moments that left no room for doubt. Laura's face crumbled. "No, it can't be. He promised me he had changed." "I'm so sorry, Laura," I said, placing a comforting hand on hers. "You deserve better than this." She broke down in tears, and I held her, offering comfort while inwardly feeling a twisted sense of satisfaction. She left the CAF-GC, devastated, and I knew that Mike's world was about to come crashing down. The next day, I received a frantic call from Mike. "Jack, I don't know what to do. Laura left me. She said she saw photos of me with another woman. I swear I didn't cheat on her. You have to believe me." "Why should I believe anything you say, Mike?" I replied coldly. "You lied to me, betrayed me. This is your karma." "Please, Jack. You're my brother. Help me," he pleaded, his voice breaking. "I have no brother," I said, hanging up. It wasn't long before word spread about Mike's latest downfall. With Laura gone, he spiraled into a deeper depression. His drinking increased, and he isolated himself even further. I heard through the grapevine that he was considering leaving town to start fresh, but I knew that wherever he went, the shadow of his actions would follow. I thought about Emily and the confrontation we'd had. Despite everything, a part of me still loved her, but I couldn't forgive her. Not yet, maybe not ever. The same went for Mike. The damage they had done was irreparable, and their suffering brought me a cold sense of justice. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to feel the weight of my actions. The revenge I had so meticulously planned and executed had left me feeling empty. My life was now devoid of the two people who had once meant the world to me. The satisfaction I had sought was fleeting, replaced by a hollow emptiness. I realized that while I had destroyed their lives, I had also shattered my own. Revenge had consumed me, and in the process, I had lost a part of myself. The betrayal had left deep scars, and I wasn't sure if they would ever fully heal. One evening, I found myself standing outside Emily's new apartment. I hadn't intended to go there, but my feet had carried me there unconsciously. I stared at the building, contemplating whether to go in. Did I want to confront her again, to rehash old wounds? Or did I want to find a way to move forward? Taking a deep breath, I turned away and walked back to my car. I wasn't ready to face her yet. The road to healing would be long and difficult, but I knew it was a journey I had to take. Revenge had consumed me, but it was time to find a way to reclaim my life. Days turned into weeks and life moved on. I threw myself into work, trying to distract myself from the lingering pain. My coworkers noticed my increased productivity and commented on my dedication, but they didn't know the turmoil beneath the surface. Every night I returned to an empty house that echoed with memories of happier times. Despite the satisfaction of my revenge, the hollowness grew. I realized that vengeance had given me temporary relief, but it had not healed the wounds. I decided to see a therapist. It wasn't an easy decision, and my pride initially resisted the idea, but I knew I needed help to move forward. Dr. Grace Roberts came highly recommended. She was compassionate yet firm, guiding me through the tangled mess of emotions. In our sessions, I started to confront the betrayal head-on, unpacking the anger, hurt, and sadness that had taken root in my heart. "Jack," she said one evening, "healing is a process. It's not linear, and it's not quick. You've taken steps towards understanding your pain, but you also need to find a way to let go of the anger that's consuming you." "But how?" I asked, feeling a mix of frustration and hopelessness. "How do I let go when the people I trusted the most betrayed me so deeply?" "By finding forgiveness," she replied gently. "Not for them, but for yourself. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning their actions. It means releasing the hold their betrayal has on you." I left her office that night, pondering her words. Forgiveness seemed impossible, a concept too lofty for my wounded heart. Yet I couldn't deny the wisdom in her advice. I knew I had to try for my own sake. Meanwhile, Emily continued to reach out. She sent messages and left voicemails, each one dripping with regret and apology. I deleted them all without listening, unable to face her pleas. But one day, an unexpected letter arrived in the mail. The handwriting was unmistakably hers. "Dear Jack, I know you have every right to hate me. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, and perhaps I never will. But I need you to understand why I did what I did. This isn't an excuse, but an attempt to explain the emptiness that led me to such a terrible choice. Our marriage was my everything. But over time, I felt us drifting apart. I didn't know how to bridge the gap, and I was too afraid to confront the growing distance between us. Mike was there, offering a sense of connection I had lost with you. I was weak, and I made a mistake that I regret deeply. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm so sorry. I know words can't fix what I broke, but I needed to tell you how much I regret my actions. I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me, not for my sake, but for yours. With all my heart, Emily." I read the letter several times, emotions swirling inside me. The sincerity of her words struck a chord, but the pain of betrayal was still too fresh. I couldn't bring myself to respond. My sessions with Dr. Roberts continued, and slowly I started to open up more about my feelings. She encouraged me to find outlets for my emotions, suggesting activities that could help me process my pain. I took up running, finding solace in the rhythmic pounding of my feet against the pavement. It became my therapy, a way to clear my mind and release pent-up frustration. One day while on a run, I saw Mike. He looked haggard, a shell of the man he once was. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw the guilt and remorse in his expression. He walked over, hesitant and unsure. "Jack," he began, his voice trembling, "can we talk?" I stopped, taking a deep breath. "What do you want, Mike?" "I want to apologize," he said, his eyes welling up with tears. "I know I don't deserve it, but I need you to know how sorry I am. I ruined everything, and I live with that guilt every day." His vulnerability took me by surprise. The anger that had fueled my actions started to wane, replaced by a tired resignation. "Mike, I can't forget what you did, but I'm trying to move on." "I understand," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. I hope one day you'll find it in your heart to forgive me." "I don't know if I can," I admitted, "but I'm trying to let go of the anger. For my own sake." He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Jack. I wish I could take it all back." As he walked away, I felt a strange sense of release. Confronting Mike had been a step towards healing, a way to acknowledge the pain without letting it define me. That night, I wrote a letter to Emily. It wasn't an acceptance of her apology, but a step towards closure. Emily, I received your letter. I can't say that I forgive you, but I appreciate your honesty. This has been the hardest experience of my life, and I'm still trying to find my way through it. I hope you find peace and that we both can move forward. Jack, I mailed the letter feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Forgiveness was a journey, and I had just taken the first step. Dr. Roberts had been right, VDJ healing was not linear, but it was possible. As the days turned into months, I focused on rebuilding my life, one step at a time. Months passed, and slowly the sharp edges of my anger and pain began to dull. My sessions with Dr. Roberts continued to provide much-needed clarity, and my evening runs became a sanctuary of sorts. It was during one of these runs that my path crossed with someone unexpected, VDJ Laura. I had almost forgotten about Laura, the woman Mike had briefly dated after Emily. Seeing her now, in a small café where I often stopped for a coffee after my runs, brought back memories of the elaborate web of deception I had spun. She was sitting alone, nursing a cup of tea and looking lost in thought. Our eyes met and recognition flickered in hers. She smiled tentatively and I approached, feeling a mix of curiosity and guilt. "Laura, right?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yes," she replied, her smile widening. "Jack, isn't it? We met briefly a while back." "That's right," I said, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. "How have you been?" She sighed, her expression turning somber. "It's been a tough few months. Mike and I broke up, and it was messy." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, genuinely feeling a pang of guilt. I had orchestrated their breakup, and now I was face to face with the consequences of my actions. "Thanks," she said, looking down at her tea. "I guess it was for the best. He wasn't who I thought he was." I nodded, unsure of what to say. Laura was a casualty of my quest for revenge, and now I had to confront the reality of my choices. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here," I offered, hoping to ease some of my guilt. She looked up, her eyes filled with gratitude. "That means a lot, Jack. Thank you." We chatted for a while longer, and I found myself enjoying her company. Laura was kind and insightful, and our conversation flowed easily. As we talked, I felt a sense of connection that I hadn't experienced in a long time. Over the next few weeks, Laura and I began to meet regularly. Our initial conversations, which started as casual chats over coffee, gradually delved deeper into our personal lives. I learned that she was an artist, passionate about painting and photography, and that she had recently opened her own gallery. One evening, after a particularly long run, I found myself outside her gallery. The lights were on and I could see her inside, setting up for an upcoming exhibition. I hesitated, then walked in, the bell above the door jingling softly. "Jack!" she exclaimed, her face lighting up with a smile. "What a surprise! Come in." I walked over, taking in the array of beautiful paintings on the walls. "This place is amazing, Laura. Your work is incredible." "Thank you," she said, her cheeks flushing with pride. "It's been a dream come true, opening this gallery." We spent the next hour touring the gallery, with Laura explaining the stories and inspirations behind each piece. Her passion was infectious, and I found myself drawn to her even more. As the evening wore on, we settled on a comfortable sofa in the back of the gallery, sipping wine and sharing stories. Laura opened up about her past, her struggles, and her dreams. I listened, feeling a deep sense of admiration for her resilience and strength. "Jack," she said softly, breaking a moment of silence, "there's something I've been meaning to ask you." "Go ahead," I replied, curious. "Why did you reach out to me back then? I mean, after everything with Mike, why did you want to be my friend?" Her question caught me off guard. I had never told her about my true motives, and now, faced with her genuine curiosity, I felt a wave of guilt. But I also realized that honesty was the only way forward. "Laura," I began, choosing my words carefully. "When we first met, I wasn't entirely honest with you. I was in a dark place, filled with anger and hurt. I reached out to you because I wanted to hurt Mike, to take something precious away from him." Her eyes widened, and I saw a flash of hurt in them. "You used me?" "At first, yes," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But things changed. The more I got to know you, the more I realized how wrong I was. You became a friend, someone I genuinely cared about, and I am so sorry for everything." She was silent for a long moment, processing my confession. Then she sighed, looking down at her hands. "I appreciate your honesty, Jack. It hurts to know that I was part of your revenge, but I also see that you've changed. You're not the same person you were back then." "I'm not," I agreed, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "I want to make things right, Laura, if you'll let me." She looked up, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and hope. "I believe in second chances, Jack. Let's take it one step at a time." From that day on, Laura and I began to rebuild our friendship on a foundation of honesty and trust. We continued to meet regularly, our bond growing stronger with each passing day. She introduced me to her world of art, and I found solace and inspiration in her creativity. As the months went by, I realized that Laura was becoming more than just a friend. She was someone I could see a future with, someone who made me believe in love again. But I knew that rushing into a new relationship wouldn't be fair to either of us. We needed time to heal and grow. In one of our sessions, Dr. Roberts asked me about my evolving feelings for Laura. "Jack, it sounds like you found someone who brings you joy and peace. How do you feel about pursuing a relationship with her?" "I care about her a lot," I admitted. "But I don't want to repeat the same mistakes. I want to be sure that I'm ready." "That's wise," she said, nodding. "Take your time and communicate openly with her. A strong foundation is key to any successful relationship." One evening, after attending an art exhibition at Laura's gallery, we went for a walk in the nearby park. The night was clear, and the stars twinkled above us. As we strolled, hand in hand, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for so long. "Laura," I began, stopping to face her, "there's something I need to tell you." She looked up at me, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "What is it, Jack?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I realize that I have feelings for you, but I also know that we both need time to heal from our pasts. I want to take things slow, to build something real and lasting with you." A smile spread across her face, and she squeezed my hand. "I feel the same way, Jack. Let's take it one step at a time together." As we continued our walk, I felt a sense of hope for the future. The journey of healing and redemption was far from over, but with Laura by my side, I knew that anything was possible. Laura and I continued to grow closer, and our friendship slowly began to blossom into something more. We spent time exploring our shared interests, going on hikes, attending art shows, and enjoying quiet evenings at her gallery. The bond between us strengthened, built on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. One afternoon, while we were having lunch at a quaint little bistro, Laura looked at me thoughtfully. "Jack, do you ever think about confronting your past? Emily and Mike, I mean." I sighed, considering her question. "I do sometimes, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. The wounds are still fresh, and facing them feels daunting." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I think it might help you heal. Closure isn't just about moving on. It's about understanding and letting go." Her words stayed with me, and later that night I found myself dialing Mike's number. It rang several times before he picked up, his voice hesitant. "Jack?" "Mike, we need to talk," I said, keeping my tone steady. "Can we meet tomorrow?" He agreed, and we arranged to meet at a local park the next afternoon. As I approached the park bench where Mike was waiting, I felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. He looked up, his face lined with guilt and regret. "Jack, I'm glad you reached out," he began. "I've been wanting to apologize again, to try and make things right." "Mike," I interrupted, "I don't know if things can ever be right between us again, but I need to understand why. Why did you and Emily do this?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It wasn't planned, Jack. It started with innocent conversations, sharing our frustrations and feelings of loneliness. One thing led to another, and before we knew it, we were in too deep." I listened, trying to absorb his words without letting the anger resurface. It hurt, Mike, more than you can imagine, but I need to find a way to move past this, for my own peace of mind. I'm so sorry, Jack, he said, his voice breaking. I wish I could undo everything. If there's anything I can do to help you heal, please let me know. We sat in silence for a few moments, the weight of his apology hanging in the air. Maybe time will help, I finally said. I'm trying to forgive, but it's a process. After our conversation, I felt a sense of relief, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Confronting Mike had been difficult, but it was a necessary step towards healing. I knew I had to do the same with Emily. A few days later, I arranged to meet Emily at a CAFGC. She arrived, looking nervous and remorseful. Jack, thank you for agreeing to meet me, she said softly. I need closure, Emily, I replied. I need to understand why this happened. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost and made terrible choices. I regret it every day. Emily, I don't know if I can ever fully forgive you, I said, my voice steady. But I'm trying to let go of the anger. We both need to move on. She reached out to touch my hand, but I pulled back gently. I wish you peace, Jack, and I hope you find happiness again. As I left the CAFGC, I felt a sense of finality. The journey of healing was far from over, but confronting my past had given me a sense of closure. With Laura by my side and a commitment to moving forward, I felt hopeful for the first time in a long while. Months passed, and the weight of the past began to lift. Laura and I grew closer, and our bond solidified into a loving relationship. The process of healing had been arduous, but with each step I felt more like myself. I had confronted the ghosts of my past, and now it was time to embrace the future. One crisp autumn evening, Laura and I decided to take a walk through the park where I had confronted Mike. The leaves had turned vibrant shades of red and gold, and the cool breeze carried a sense of renewal. We strolled hand in hand, enjoying the peace that had been so hard-earned. As we reached a small clearing, Laura stopped and turned to me. Jack, there's something I've been wanting to tell you. Her eyes shone with warmth and sincerity. You've brought so much light into my life. I know we both have pasts we're healing from, but I want you to know that I'm all in. I love you, Jack. My heart swelled with emotion. Laura, I love you too. You've been my rock, my inspiration. I can't imagine my life without you. We kissed, sealing our commitment to each other. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of nature, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Life had dealt me a harsh blow, but it had also given me a second chance at happiness. In the following weeks, our relationship continued to deepen. We supported each other through the remaining challenges of our pasts and celebrated each other's successes. Laura's gallery flourished, and I found new joy in my work, fueled by a sense of purpose and fulfillment. One evening, as we sat together in her cozy living room, Laura looked at me with a mischievous glint in her eye. Jack, I've been thinking, how do you feel about us moving in together? Her proposal caught me off guard, but it felt right. I'd love that, Laura. I think it's time we start building a life together. We spent the next few months finding a new home, a place that would symbolize our fresh start. We chose a charming house with a garden, where Laura could create an outdoor studio, and I could have a space to unwind after work. Moving in together was a significant step, and it solidified our commitment to each other. As we settled into our new home, we made a conscious effort to maintain open communication and support each other's growth. We attended couples therapy, ensuring that our relationship remained strong and healthy. Dr. Roberts continued to guide me, helping me navigate the remaining complexities of my emotions. One day, while unpacking a box of old photographs, I came across a picture of Emily and me from our wedding day. I felt a pang of nostalgia and sadness, but also a sense of acceptance. That chapter of my life had ended, but it had led me to where I was now, VDJ, with Laura, in a place of love and healing. I decided to reach out to Emily one last time, to share my final thoughts, and to close the door on that part of my life. I wrote her a letter. Dear Emily, I wanted to reach out one last time to let you know that I have found peace. The journey has been long and painful, but it has also led me to a place of understanding and acceptance. I no longer hold anger or resentment towards you. I hope you too have found a way to heal and move forward. Thank you for the lessons our time together taught me. I wish you all the best in your future. Sincerely, Jack. With that letter, I felt a sense of completion. I had confronted my past, found love again, and built a new life filled with hope and promise. On a warm summer evening, as the sun set over our garden, Laura and I sat together, watching the sky turn shades of pink and orange. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, feeling content and at peace. "Jack," she said softly, "this feels like a dream." "It's our dream, Laura," I replied. "A new beginning." As we sat there, surrounded by the beauty of our new life, I realized that the scars of the past had become a part of my story, but they no longer defined me. I had found love, forgiveness, and a future worth fighting for. The journey had been difficult, but it had led me to a place of true happiness, and in that moment, I knew that I was finally home.